Thank you so much to the BAAL committee for inviting me to give this presentation. And as I was introduced as an item writer, it's not a surprise that my presentation will be about automated generation, but I'd like to talk about item writer perspective. Uh, Item writers, this is the definition that was given that we gave in 2019, and I believe that this definition needs some updating now because it presupposes that all item writers are humans, thus excluding AI. Item writers create items for large-scale language tests like IELTS or TOEFL. These people are normally freelancers paid by commission, and to earn a living, many of them work for multiple testing organizations. Large-scale national or regional exams, such as A-levels in the UK or Matura exams in Austria or Gaokao in China, they also rely on item writers. These item writers are often school teachers who earn their extra incomes through this work. Individual universities have test centers that also require item writers, and classroom teachers create tests as part of their workload. Many of these individuals may not even identify themselves as item writers, but they are. And with AI now being used to generate test items, they might feel uncertain about the future of their profession. In this presentation, I'll offer my perspective on these three questions. What do item writers think of automated item generation with AI? Will there be human item writers in the future? And what will item writing be like in the future? Item writers are rarely focused on research, so I feel quite lucky to be able to report on a recent study commissioned by the British Council on item writer perceptions and attitudes to using generative AI for producing language test items. An online anonymous survey was administered to British Council item writers in February this year. 18 of them responded, which is more than 50% of the whole cohort and probably shows their interest in the topic. The item writers were asked about their familiarity with generative AI, about their current uses of generative AI for item writing, and about any perceived opportunities or training needs that they might have. All item writers were familiar with generative AI, and 3 of them said that they knew quite a lot about it. 16 of them have already used at least one generative AI tool, with ChatGPT being the most preferred. The generative AI uses outside of item writing included paid classroom materials, information searches, checking students' work for plagiarism, simplifying texts, generating images, translating, blogging, and composing emails. In terms of item writing, 11, so many more than 50%, have already used generative AI for item writing, mainly to generate ideas, but also to generate text for reading or listening tasks, to generate writing or speaking prompts, and to generate text-based items. The question about the usability of generative AI output resulted in an interesting finding. Nobody thought that the output is completely unsuitable. Likewise, nobody thought that it was fully usable as it is. All item writers thought the generative AI output requires some degree of editing, with the majority saying that it requires quite a lot of editing. Item writers saw the following limitations of AI for item writing. The text being off topic, unsuitable grammar or vocabulary for the target level. They complain that AI couldn't meet all the specification requirements or it doesn't know the CFR. Quite a few of them stress the importance of a good prompt, garbage in, garbage out. There were both positive and negative attitudes towards using AI for item writing. Those who felt positive about it said that it saves them time. One wrote, I like it because I think it speeds up my workflow and helps me accomplish more. Anything that can help me do more with less gets added to my toolbox. One one more positive reason was that AI is a useful collaborator. And I particularly like this quote. In a way, it's like asking every teacher who has ever written anything on the internet for suggestions. AI does not do the work for you, but it is a good substitute for having a staff room full of teachers with the time to help with ideas. But there were also negative attitude. Some item writers have doubts about generative AI capabilities. At most, I'd use it to get ideas, outlines for text, but I wouldn't trust it to craft items. And there was also fear. I can't see how it won't mean that human item writers will be made redundant in the future. So to summarize, item writers are generally familiar with generative AI. A substantial number of them have already used generative AI for their item writing work. And although item writers see generative AI as an imperfect tool, many of them perceive it as helpful. At the same time, item writers also see generative AI as a threat to their job security. So will there be human item writers in the future? It's quite natural that people are feeling uneasy about their jobs with the rise of AI. People in many professions, not only item writers, are feeling this way at the moment. I might now sound somewhat controversial, but I will try to prove my point. I think that technology creates jobs, and Deloitte expressed the same idea in their 2015 report. They wrote that technology has created more jobs than it has destroyed. When a machine replaces a human, the result paradoxically is faster growth and in time rising employment. This trend has happened repeatedly throughout the whole of human history. If we take, for example, historical example in the 19th century, when textile machines like the spinning jenny appeared, textile workers feared that their jobs would vanish. But cheaper clothes meant higher demand, leading to more factory jobs and growth in industries like cotton farming, shipping, and retail, creating more jobs overall. And much more recent example with renewable energy, the transition to renewable energy initially raised fears of job losses in traditional fossil fuel industries. But what happened is that's right, some fossil fuel jobs did decline in some areas, but renewable energy industries such as wind and solar have created millions of jobs in installation, maintenance, research, and manufacturing. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, expressed this same idea. He said learning AI technologies will keep people employed and create new job opportunities, although these roles may look different from today's jobs. And you can see on the screen some of the many new jobs that AI has already created or is creating as we speak. But what about item writing? In my professional life, I wear two hats. I'm a language assessment researcher, but I'm also a practicing item writer. And what I've noticed recently is that instead of decreasing, the demand for item writers has increased. And I connected to the demand to more items. There are multiple reasons for that. Move to online assessment has made tests cheaper and more accessible. This has exponentially increased the volume of test takers and drove up demand for test items. Traditional paper-based testing requires only 1 or 2 versions per year because of infrequent administrations. In contrast, online tests and frequent administrations demand vast and dynamic item banks with thousands of calibrated items to ensure security and variety across test forms. With online tests, item exposure happens more quickly and items can be compromised or memorized. This requires frequent updates to huge item banks, which also means more items are needed constantly. AI has popularized adaptive testing, where the test dynamically adjusts to a test taker's ability level. Adaptive testing significantly increases the need for items across the full range of difficulty levels, ensuring the algorithm can effectively match item difficulty to the test taker's performance. And finally, AI has enabled the development of tests for niche purposes, for example, industry-specific certifications. Each of these new contexts also demands tailored items. You might be thinking, well, that's good. There is the increased demand for items, but it doesn't necessarily mean an increased demand for item writers because all these multitudes of items can be generated by AI. So will human item writers still be needed? Personally, I think they will. Just like doctors and architects feared for a while the technology will replace them, but what happened in reality is that advanced diagnostic tools enhanced doctors' roles but did not replace them, and computer-aided design software empowered architects but did not replace them. The same is going to happen to the item writing profession. It will not disappear, but AI will certainly transform it. And for the rest of this presentation, I'm going to talk about what item writing is going to look like in the future. The job will remain, but the job description will evolve. Rather than writing tasks and items from scratch as they did before, item writers will likely shift towards new roles. One new approach to item writing is the human-in-the-loop model used in the Duolingo test development process. Here, AI generates items and humans act as quality controllers. They discard unusable items, select high-quality ones, and edit items that can be improved. The review goes beyond only technical aspects because ethical oversight is essential to address biases and ensure fairness, inclusivity, and accessibility in every item. At the inaugural meeting of IALTA's AI Special Interest Group in Belfast this year, I also suggested another approach. I called it human in the lead, and I'm pleased to see that the term is gaining traction. In this model, item writers play a more proactive role, using AI as a co-pilot to produce items collaboratively. This is especially valuable for designing innovative item types that would be challenging, if not impossible, to create without AI support. I'm sure that Olena will talk more about the human-in-the-loop model, so I'll concentrate on the human-in-the-lead approach for the rest of this presentation. I'd like to exemplify the human-in-the-lead approach where AI acts as a co-pilot with a study I'm involved in at the moment. The study explores the use of generative AI to produce multiple choice and true-false items for B1 and B2 reading comprehension tests of the official schools of languages in Catalonia. A detailed prompt based on the test specifications has been developed to generate items using ChatGPT-4. The progressive hint prompting technique was employed to refine outputs iteratively. From 30 items generated per text, 5 to 10 were shortlisted for independent evaluation by 2 professional human reviewers. In a subsequent reviewer meeting, 4 best tasks per level, and there were 12 altogether, were selected for trialing. These tasks were then administered to hundreds of students from 30 Catalonian schools under exam-like conditions. The students also gave feedback on item clarity and difficulty. The data analysis is ongoing, but preliminary results look promising. Initially, I was skeptical about AI's ability to produce items targeting higher order thinking skills. And this is the view shared by many specialists. For example, Xiaomin Xi said just recently that generating items that target more sophisticated sub-skills, for example, making inferences for reading comprehension, remains a challenge. However, preliminary results from our study suggest that ChatGPT-4 might show promise in generating items targeting skills like inference, understanding attitudes, and also global comprehension. In our study, for each generated item, AI also identified the skill that the item targeted. Human reviewers then have to do the same, obviously blind. We assessed the agreement between the AI and human reviewers using Krippendorf's alpha, and the agreement between AI and both reviewers together was 0.644, which can be interpreted as a substantial agreement. Interestingly, the agreement between AI and reviewer 1 was even higher, 0.802, which is interpreted as excellent agreement. I interpret this result as ChatGPT being able to distinguish between reading skills effectively and thus being able to generate items according to different reading skills. However, these results were not achieved by AI alone. It worked with a human item writer in a co-pilot mode, exemplifying the power of the human in the lead model. I was the human item writer for the study as well as the principal investigator, and this is what I had to do. I converted task specifications into a prompt. I ran item generation rounds. After each round, I analyzed the item quality, and then based on the insights that I gained, I refined the prompt to improve AI's performance, and I ran the next round, doing it again and again. Then I selected best items for further review. In our study, the items were not edited because the primary goal was to evaluate AI's ability for item generation. But in operational item production, human item writers will also have to edit the AI-generated items. And I believe that all these tasks will be part of job description for item writers of the future. But this is not all. Technology has enabled new innovative task tasks, and item writers have a role to play. Technology now allows tasks to better simulate real-world language use, particularly through integrated and multimodal tasks. Integrated tasks are the tasks that combine multiple skills in a single activity. For example, reading a passage and writing a summary of it, or watching a video and engaging in a spoken discussion about the video. Multimodal tasks require interaction with text, audio, video, images, and data simultaneously, thus reflecting modern communications complexity. For example, it might be responding to questions based on an infographic, or maybe completing a diagram having watched the video with spoken instructions. Creating such tasks demands multimodal item writing, which is far more complex than writing traditional discrete point items, which are also not easy to write. In multimodal item writing, AI plays an indispensable role, but human item writers remain central, performing the following tasks. They conceptualize the task, they design prompts for AI to generate text, generate videos, audios, visuals. They evaluate AI outputs for accuracy, relevance, or fairness. They also have to assess the interplay between multimodal elements. In other words, how well text, visuals, audios work together as a task. They also edit and refine task materials. They produce clear task instructions. And importantly, they have to collaborate with AI developers and other specialists in a multidisciplinary item production team. This is challenging, creative, and exciting work for human item writers of the future. So the future is full of opportunities. But to thrive in this landscape, new skills are needed. First and foremost, item writers will need to embrace the change. A willingness to continuously learn new tools, approaches, and technologies is paramount. Secondly, item writers will need to continuously improve their digital literacy. The job will require mastering various digital tools and platforms to produce and refine test items effectively. Moreover, they will need to develop expertise in creating and refining prompts to guide AI systems in generating quality test items. Understanding what tasks can be delegated to AI and what requires human expertise will be the key to success. Finally, as interdisciplinary task production teams grow to include specialists like natural language processing experts, effective teamwork across disciplines is becoming increasingly important. I can imagine that an item writer listening to this presentation might start feeling overwhelmed. Many item writers are freelancers, juggling their item writing alongside some other full-time work, for example, teaching. How can they find the time to explore AI, and where should they begin? So I'd like to give a few practical suggestions at the end of this presentation. Platforms like Coursera and Udemy offer courses on AI and prompt engineering. If you don't need a certificate, many of these courses are free. A number of events now focus on AI in language assessment, such as this webinar. The newly formed AI for Language Assessment Special Interest Group, of which I am a co-convener, is hosting a free online conference on March the 5th, and you're all very welcome to register. You can even join a community such as EALT's AI for LAC to stay up to date with developments and foster professional connections. There is a growing number of publications on using AI for test development. On my website, I curate a bibliography of publications and presentations on automated item generation for language assessment. But most importantly, I'd like to stress that if you are interested, you need to start using AI tools now if you haven't started yet. Free accounts with platforms like ChatGPT or Canva will allow you to explore AI's capabilities, start experimenting with producing prompts, analyzing AI outputs, and learn what AI can and can't do, and also how you can get the best out of it. But of course, individual item writers shouldn't carry this responsibility alone. Test production teams should provide their item writers with training on using AI tools. They can also develop reusable prompt templates for item writers to simplify workflows. These suggestions are just a starting point. The key is to take the first step, explore, and build confidence in integrating AI into your work. You can find the publications I've mentioned during this presentation, and also many more on this link. And thank you so much for listening.